Welcome to the Pay Yourself First podcast. My name is Chris Jolly, and I'm on a mission to financially empower millions of entrepreneurs. I want you to make and keep more money so that you can begin implementing and turbocharging a plan for creating financial freedom your way during the life cycle of your current business without spending a ton of time or becoming a professional investor. You see, most of the financial teachings out there are made for employees, not entrepreneurs. If you wouldn't listen to someone who doesn't have kids about parenting, why take business financial advice from someone without a business? Are you ready to break free of bad advice and follow the trail of other uncommon entrepreneurs so you can get from where you are now to the lifestyle you were aiming to create when you started your business? Then stick around. Here comes another episode of Pay Yourself First, where the only investment we offer is the one you make in yourself. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm very excited to be on with you today, as I always am, because we have another amazing entrepreneur on today. Her name is Miriam Ortiz Pina, and she is in New Mexico. Her business is called More Than Organized. She's a certified professional organizer, been doing it a long time. Miriam, how are you today?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure to have you on. I'm sure it's going to be a blast today. I know we'll deliver a lot of value for the audience. So looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun time for me. I hope it's a fun time for you and everybody else out there as well. So why don't you just go ahead and get started and tell everybody a little bit about your business, what you do, who you help, and how you got into this crazy world of organizing other people's stuff.
Yeah, so it's been quite a journey, and it probably started when I was a young child, but we won't necessarily go all the way back. Let's just say I've always been fascinated by organizing and systems and trying them out, and not always successfully. But when it became clear I was unemployable by other people, I decided it was time to start my own business. And because I had always been organizing people already, a friend of my mom's who was very involved in supporting women entrepreneurs sent me an article about the National Association of, at the time, professional organizers. It's now National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. So it's expanded its scope a little bit. And so I looked into what it would take to become a professional organizer, and it was great. At first, it was great. All the friends and family hired me. All the people I knew came out of the woodwork. And then I realized I didn't really know some of the money stuff around business. And I had to start learning that because, I went into it thinking, oh, I just have to replace my old corporate income. And then I realized, oh, when I do that, I only make a third of what I used to be making. And then I was like, I'm doing something wrong. And all of the information out there is about scaling and growing a business to be full of employees and complications. And that wasn't what I was looking for. I consider myself a simplicity expert, and I wanted to keep things simple. And there just wasn't any advice of what to do when you're in that situation. Like if I wanted 10 employees, I could find small business loans. If I wanted to grow even bigger than that, or franchise or something, or build a big team, there was lots of information. But to remain a sole proprietor and run a successful business that really helped and impacted people, not so much. So I started getting business coaching and learning about how to run a business more from the consultancy or coaching standpoint than from a startup standpoint. And that changed everything for me. I learned how to price and package things differently. I got really interested in the entrepreneurial creative process. And that's when I kind of married the whole themes of organizing, productivity, and money mindset. And I added those credentials and started incorporating that into my business. So now mostly I work with other small and micro entrepreneurs that are looking for some freedom and some simplicity in how they run their business so that they can do more of what they actually want to do.
Awesome.
And I still occasionally just go through everybody's clutter because everybody has that.
Yeah, that's got to be a really kind of interesting and voyeuristic thing. You brought up some
Yeah.
really great points, and one thing that we talk about a lot on the podcast is that idea that you kind of get into business because you have a skill or something you know and know how to do and love, but that doesn't necessarily mean you know how to run a business or you know the finances in a business. And I totally want to
Mm-hmm.
come back to that. But for now, I want to focus a little more on what happens when somebody comes to you and they're like, Miriam, I just need help organizing, whether it's their business, their life, their money. Why are they coming to you besides the obvious? What is kind of getting in their way, and how do you help them get past that?
Yeah. So most people find me because they have some sort of clutter issue, and 90% of the time that is paper, actual physical piles of paper. Um, I know there's a lot of people that claim to be all digital, but I'm telling you, even my clients that do 90% of their stuff digitally still have piles of paper that they just don't know what to do with because they're not sure it's right to scan, or they feel it's temporary, but they don't have a system for processing it. So paper is the number one thing. Um, but also people don't seem to really know what they want a lot of the time. And it's really hard to set up your physical space when you don't know what it's supporting you in. And so I help people start by figuring it out. But no one comes to me for that. No one knows they don't know what they want. They think they know what they want, and it's really a superficial thing that's not actually what they want. So it's always, I'm overwhelmed and I have too much clutter. And then we go from there. Or I can't get it all done, especially new business owners are like, I don't know how to get all the stuff done that I need to do. And it's because they failed to set up systems to help them come up with the processes they need to then delegate as soon as they can. Um, and just helping them understand that connection, that there's the physical stuff, there's the time piece, and there is the actual systems that go into running a business. So it kind of depends how they found me, but most people, if they just search for me, come to me about clutter.
Okay, gotcha. Now I find again and again that somebody's business, and you can say the same, I'm sure, about their physical space, is really just a reflection of that person and how they are,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So when
Yeah.
when an entrepreneur comes to you and they're trying to overcome the overwhelm and the not having systems, what do you find is usually like, why can't they do that on their own?
Well, it's not taught. We're not just born with this knowledge. You have to go out and actually seek it. Um, Between that, a lot of my clients are super creative and ADHD, so it's too many ideas and they don't know how to focus their ideas to get the results. So they give up on something before they've actually practiced it or iterated it to the point where it will work. They just skip over to the next thing. So there's all these open loops and unfinished ideas. And once I help them start realizing that they fit together in a way, and you have to do some foundational stuff to get to that next step, it gets easier for them. But it's not understanding how a business actually runs. It's knowing your thing. It's that freelancer thing. I know this. I don't know about the money. I don't know about how to do inventory. I don't know about how to package and price my services. I don't know any of that. I know how to make this thing or do this thing. Um, and so many people I'm sure are referring to the Robert Kiyosaki stuff with which quadrant are you in? I'm not the hugest fan of his, but that particular concept is great in understanding the evolution of going from being an employee to a freelancer to a business owner to an investor. I think that was really critical. Once I saw it on paper, it was like, oh, that makes sense. I was doing it wrong. Now I know there's other considerations to bring to the equation.
Yeah, that is definitely a great handy little chart, infographic, whatever you want to call it, and does get the point
Right.
across really well. Takes a lot of information and just narrows it down so you know what to focus on. So somebody comes
Yeah.
to you, their business is a mess. You help
Mhm.
them, I assume, to kind of get their systems and processes in place. Now, I'm going to guess that that's a fairly individual thing because it depends on the person, their blocks and obstacles, where they're at. And yet, at the same time, there's probably a larger overarching structure that will kind of work for most people. So, when you work with somebody, where is the balance between like, hey, here's a templated thing anybody can go and do, and hey, here is where we need to really dive into your specific thing?
Yeah, that is a really great question and discerning piece of the puzzle. There are a lot of people out there that claim to be able to help you with your processes and stuff, and it's true. It's a template of some sort, and that's great. But also adding the piece where you understand how different people think, how they process information, what obstacles they have, what other things going on, how much support they have. Are they left-handed or right-handed? I can't tell you how many people set up their desk for a right-handed person, and then I find out they're left-handed, and it's like, let's just switch everything. And then they're like, oh, um, yeah, all those little pieces come from experience and breadth of inputs that I've had over the years, and really wanting to master that piece of it for people. So being both a coach and an organizer allows me to bridge that gap for people. I can hear stuff in what they say and know a solution for them. It's not just the one way. At the same time, the basics of organizing and systematizing things are the same across the board, but how to communicate it with the individual so they hear it differently and they can incorporate it into their actual practice is where the art and science meet.
Yeah, that makes sense. Got it. Okay, now maybe you can, and if you can, it's okay. No calling anybody out. Obviously, we don't need to name any names or anything, but what is like the biggest mess you've ever walked into, whether it's a business or like just organizing somebody's house or whatever? Can you tell us what that was like?
Oh, there's so many. So probably the actual worst one was I was actually working on an episode of Hoarders, and we couldn't open the front door to this woman's house. Like
Wow.
the couch was so close to the door that it opened like 8 inches maybe. And that couch was on about a foot of stuff on the floor. So the couch wasn't even on the floor anymore. That's probably the worst actual physical space. Now, in terms of volume, I actually worked with a print business that had so much stuff and had one of those owners that would pick up like lots of things at auctions to save herself money, and then she had so much stuff she could never put her hands on it, or there wouldn't be enough to do an actual job and she'd have to order more in and that kind of thing. And just getting her to understand that she actually had been in business for 40 years and she knew what she was doing. She didn't have to keep proving that she knew everything. Allowed her to start letting go of some of this stuff. But that one was difficult because it didn't feel as overwhelming as not being able to open the door, but it was actually such a volume of stuff. It was a big hindrance in the efficiency of the business.
Yeah, I bet, and especially as you said, if papers are people's biggest area of mess, then a place that does nothing but print out stuff all the time must have a lot of it.
Right. Yeah, on both ends, like the stuff they had printed out that was cool and the raw materials of the paper going through the machines. It was on both ends.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that. Okay, so an entrepreneur, or I guess when you work with entrepreneurs, what's the one thing that you find is like the light bulb moment for them, or one tool that when you give them, they're like, wow, that just made my life so much easier?
Yeah, when they realize that systems actually set them free. Um, because I work with a lot of creative entrepreneurs, they don't want to be held back. They think I'm going to restrict their creativity. And when they realize that by having these systems in place over here for the mundane daily stuff, it gives you more free time to create, then they go, oh, let's try that. And the payoff is almost instantaneous. But when you approach business completely footloose and fancy free, you don't make any forward momentum. It won't grow. It won't thrive. It will just stagnate because you didn't treat it with honor and respect, in my opinion.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're doing business by yourself, you can probably get away for a while to a long time, not really systematizing things because you're the one that does all the stuff. You wake up in the morning and you know how it's supposed to be done. But the minute you expand to even one team member, if you don't have that stuff nailed down, they're not going to know what to
Right.
do the way that you want it done because they're not a clone of you.
And that's the number one complaint they have, right? How to balance that freedom and the control. Well, I can just do it faster myself. Well, yeah, because you have to teach them your method of doing it and you don't know what that is. So you're actually not the most efficient person at doing it either. You just forgot to turn it into a routine or a habit. Um, and that the amount of payoff there is to teaching someone to do it to your standards and your expectations is so worth it. But you can't do that if you don't have that defined ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always love to tell people, do it well ahead of time. If you even think, hey, I'm going to need an employee soon, you need to make sure you have
Mhm.
all that stuff done then. Because if you wait until you hire the employee, then not only are you trying to teach them, you're also trying to figure out what your systems and processes are, and you're trying to document them, and then you're trying to train that person and all of that. And then it just gets to be a headache.
Yeah, there's kind of two caveats to that. You can hire someone and be upfront about the fact that you don't have processes and you need help developing the processes, and you look for that skill set in your first hire.
Yep.
Or you the other thing I see is a lot of people hiring out stuff that they don't want to think about. And then they don't know how to supervise that person because they don't know enough about it to measure anything. So, for instance, oh, I don't even want to think about Facebook ads. I can't. No, I'm not looking at it. And then you don't know if the person is bringing an ROI that's acceptable. And the first couple times you see some statistics, you're going to be like, well, that's too much. I shouldn't have to pay that much for a lead. It's like, well, do you know how it works? Do you know what the industry standard is? Do you know the expectations? Do you know enough to say, hey, you messed up my font? We want consistency and branding. Do you know any of that kind of more technical stuff? You don't have to know everything, but you need to have some criteria for evaluating the work you're hiring out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now, Miriam, I want to move on to the financial piece. So you mentioned a little bit
Yeah.
before about the learning curve you entered in when you went into business with yourself around finance. And I find almost with every person, that's the way it is. I mean, unless you go and get an MBA and then start a business, or like you're hired to do paper admin and people's books and stuff like that, and you learn all of this up front, most of us have very little knowledge going into starting a business about finances and about finance in business specifically, like balancing your checkbook and running a business are not the same thing. And I
Mhm.
just across the board, almost everybody I know didn't get very much financial training personally in life. And the
Mhm.
number who got any business finance training is even less. So, what was that journey like for you?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I did go to business school. I studied marketing. I had a little bit of business or finance background. So I understood all that. I didn't know how to apply it to me, myself, in my own business. Like I could work numbers if someone handed me numbers or had accounts. Like I knew how to set it up and stuff. But what I didn't know was what do you do when there's no money that month? Like that never occurred to me. What do you mean I'm not going to have any money that month? I'm in business now. Don't people just come to me? Or what you mentioned earlier about, oh, I have some money. What's the best next step to do with the money? Um, so it turns out I'm really, really good at money when I have it and or it's consistent. I can budget and save like nobody's business. But there are times, especially in the startup phase, where your income is going to go up and down rather drastically. I mean, I'd have $20,000 months and I'd have $400 months. And I didn't know how to navigate that piece very well. Um, so that was one issue. Also, because I made the conscious choice to stay a sole proprietor for a variety of reasons, mostly because I could change it at any point, and I've never actually needed to. My accounting structures and things were different, but that also meant I couldn't get lines of credit and I couldn't do some other things that might have opened up for me if I set it up differently, but it would have complicated things at the same time. So that's one of the things. Really take the time to talk to lawyers and CPAs about your business entity and if it's the right choice for you.
Yeah.
and how that's going to affect your cash flow and get the specific advice. It's so worth getting the specific advice on that, paying for it. Like that's one of the first things I would tell people to invest in. It's like, it's not worth spending 6 years of trying to figure it out on your own when you can pay for a few hours and get it solved.
Yeah, and that
Would
kind of
be
thing.
my best advice.
Yep, and that kind of thing can come back to hurt you if you don't set it up in the right way. You could be
Yeah.
getting taxed the wrong way. You could have legal
Mhm.
ramifications later on, and everybody thinks, "Oh, I'll just go spend the $200 on LegalZoom or whatever, and I don't have to do anything." And you know that in some cases is better than nothing. But like you said, there's not a specific person you're talking to who's giving you advice on your type of business. They're just generally issuing you an LLC and hoping you know what to do about it or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And, you know, for me, like I said, going from a sole proprietor to an S Corp, a B Corp, or an LLC or a partnership goes that way. You can't go back.
Yes.
So until you know what you're really doing in your business, if it's going to be successful and all that stuff, you might want to just go from the sole proprietor thing until you get to a certain revenue goal and then incorporate. Which is not, it's still not the reason I haven't done it, but everybody's situation is going to be a little different. I don't own a home and stuff, so they can't, the liability piece is different for me.
Sure.
So it still hasn't made sense financially, tax wise, all that to do that yet. It will eventually.
Awesome. Now, you brought up something that a lot of the people, a lot of the entrepreneurs I talk to deal with, and that is inconsistent revenue. Now, technically,
Yeah.
that's the thing in pretty much every business because we all have lean months, we all have months that just come out of nowhere. But a lot of businesses are seasonal, and then when you do things like coaching, marketing, all that kind of stuff, you'll have those months where you get a couple of big clients, really big payouts, and then like crickets and tumbleweeds for the next month. And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs run into trouble because they haven't put money away for those lean times. They don't know what to do. How do you plan for that in your business?
Yeah. So it's a combination of planning ahead and going ahead and moving some of that money out of my operating account so it's not as easy to overspend it and then bringing it back in on a monthly basis, especially when I get the bigger retainers. Um, but also understanding that marketing has to be consistent. You can't not market this month and expect money to come in 3 months from now. You have to continue to market even when you're busy. And once you figure that out, it brings that baseline revenue up so your lean times aren't as lean and your highs will continue to be high. Um, but whatever you can do, and sometimes it means diversifying a little bit, having another offer that will bring in just a couple new chunks of money a month, whether it's a VIP day or something like that, can really help that as well. But just understanding that cycle and seasonality. I mean, my background was in retail. And so I knew that there are businesses, even in retail, you can have $1 million generating store, but 80% of that comes in November and December.
Yep.
The other months are still pretty good and they're doable, but you have to be prepared for the uptick and then the complete jump off a cliff on the other end of it.
Absolutely. And that's such a good point about lead generation because so many people, especially when they're new in business, they'll spend all of this time marketing to people, reaching out to potential clients, and then they sign one or two, and then the only thing they focus on is serving those clients, and they forget, hey, if I don't keep doing lead gen all of the time, next month, where are these clients going to come from when I need more money?
Yeah, and there's a lot to do with location as well when it comes to small businesses that run like that, because the referral thing, I have colleagues on the coasts that they don't have to do much marketing because all of their revenue is generated word of mouth. And it's crazy. They just, one client tells them about two other clients, and then those two, it's like the old hair shampoo commercial, whatever that was. They tell two friends and they tell two friends. Um, I have not had that experience. I have people that love my work, rave about it. I'll say, do you know anyone that would help? Oh, I know like 12 people. And they tell all those people, and those people never call because they're just organized and they don't follow through. And in the West, we have a very independent spirit. I think especially in New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, we have maybe Western Texas. There's this thing that we can do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Why would we pay for that? Or what? Oh, that's later on. That it's never thought of as, oh, I know exactly what to do. I need an organizer.
Right.
It's not like I'm a mechanic or a dentist. So you have to fight through that a little bit too. But that point you just made about you have to continually focus on a few things, not just switching over and delivering. I have a framework I use, the 5 essential business systems, to help remind people that even if they're not focusing on all 5 all the time, you need to look in on them regularly.
Yeah.
So that things don't go off the rails. Yeah, you've got money, you've got marketing, you've got people, you've got your deliverables, and you've got inventory. Even if it's just you and it's printer ink and printer paper,
Sure.
you still have some inventory. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, Miriam, I want to ask you this question. Now, imagine your business as a garden hose. Hoses, can get kinked over, and that'll just cut off the flow of water entirely. So if there's one thing in your business that's kinking up the hose that is kind of like holding back that cash flow from exploding into your business, what would you say it is?
Oh, uh, that's a really, really good question. And I could answer it several different ways. But I think typically it's messaging. Like every time I try to grow or change direction a little bit and need to adjust my messaging, it puts a kink in the hose. And I don't know why it took me 23 years to realize that.
Better late than
And
never.
just recently. Yeah. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't really think of it as such a big thing. I think between that and taking care of yourself so that you have the capacity to do the work, don't sacrifice all of your self-care for the sake of your business. You have to take care of yourself first. Those
Yep.
are the 2 things.
Yep, you got to pay yourself first, and you got to take care of yourself first.
Yes.
And they're one and the same.
Even if you're only paying yourself a couple dollars in the beginning.
Right, absolutely. No, it's just a habit that you need to start and ingrain, because if you don't, you'll get to the end of things and then realize you haven't really paid yourself at all. And you know what? That can work if you like have some awesome business that really takes off and you start making all kinds of money and you can stack it at the end, or you sell it and make a ton of cash. But if you're like
Yeah.
a lot of people, you can start a business, make it all the way to the end until the business has to shut down and not take a dollar out of it.
Yeah, I'm so surprised how many of my clients are in that position. And I'll just give a shout out to Mike McCallowicks and the Profit First system
Uh-huh.
for opening my eyes to that in a little bit different way. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's a great book. Everybody should read it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, can you tell me what's your biggest goal financially in the business right now? Like if you could achieve one goal financially within the next 12 months, what would that be?
Yeah, for how to phrase it in the financial thing. So I'm just gonna say it. I want to make $300,000 this year.
Love it.
And that looks like uh online course slash group programs for me. And it's something I've always wanted to do since the day I opened the business. And I just never really focused on it. And so this is the year I am doing that.
Amazing. Congratulations. I can't wait to celebrate your success with you on that one.
Thanks. I'll let you know. I'll
Sweet.
keep you posted.
Awesome. Okay, now, can you tell everybody out there what financial freedom means to you? So I want you to assume you're in a place, let's say you're making that $300,000 or double or triple that, and you've got so much money coming in, you don't have to worry about anything day to day. You don't even have to show up in your business if you don't want to. It can run totally without you. All the free time in the world, all the money you could ask for. What do your days look like then?
I am outside a lot. I am reading a lot. I am meeting friends for lunch and coffee and cocktails. I'm I like mini adventures. So I'm not the biggest traveler, but I like, oh, let's go explore this thing this week or let's check that thing out. So I would be doing a lot more of that. Definitely. Um and looking at art. I love art.
Very cool. That's a great
Mhm.
vision. It sounds like you've thought it through some, so I could just, feel the reality of it as you were speaking.
Yeah, it's really important to know what you want because the other thing is once I figured out what I wanted, it doesn't look like $1 million. I mean, $1 million would be fine, but I don't have to work hard to get $1 million. I can work less and get 300,000 and still get what I want. And it might be bigger than that. I'm open to that, but it doesn't have to, it lost that extra striving piece, that hustle piece to it. And it changed my entire relationship with my business.
Yeah, I think there's so much culturally and economically that makes people think, oh, financial freedom means I've got a big mansion and I'm driving a Ferrari and a Lamborghini or whatever, and like start going
No,
to all
it
these
means
crazy things.
not.
Yeah, go ahead.
It means having your perfect car and having it paid off and not having a car payment and not replacing it every 3 years. It means living in a place that brings you joy, not by size, but by the exquisiteness of it that's just right for you. Those kinds of things. It's very personal. It's not what someone else has.
And that's why I find the clarity is so important. And that's the first thing that I do when working with people is, figure out what you want, because until you know what you want, we don't know what to aim at. And, you're just kind of picking what everybody else says you should want or what you think you're supposed to want. And it's usually not the case once you drill down. Most people don't want that thing that they made the big shiny prize to look like.
Right. I mean, everything you want has other headaches, especially when it comes to money. Like every time you make a leap in the money or the financial growth of your business, you're going to have to go through some mindset twists and turns anyway. So you might as well make it working towards what you really want. Um, yeah, it's
Okay.
complicated and people don't spend enough time on that. I'm glad you do.
Thank you. So I want to ask you about, we touched on it a little bit earlier about how this is a challenge, but for a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll have money coming in. Let's say they sign an extra couple of clients they weren't expecting for the month. They do some
Mhm.
VIP day and they make a ton of extra cash. How do you choose what to do with the money when it comes in, whether it's, your own personal development, putting the money back into the business, taking money out of the business to set it aside to invest? Like what is the determining factor for you on that?
I have no idea. Really, I think knowing what you want really helps. I think paying yourself first. So if you, and I do it by percentages. So it doesn't matter what month, which is what I learned from Profit First.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the amount, it matters the motion and the consistency of that motion. So, you know, I don't pay myself all that much right now, but the business covers an awful lot of my daily expenses. So it doesn't really matter from that perspective. I happen to be recovering from being interested in a lot of things and constantly learning, and so I may or may not have joined a few too many programs last year.
Yeah.
Um so what I would say my learning from that is be really clear on why you're joining a program or doing an online course or anything, about what is that piece going to be the next piece of stuff for your business growth that you need. It'll still be there. That information will be there when you need it if it's not right now, and to pace yourself with that. Don't join another program till you finish incorporating what you just learned, if there's stuff you're going to incorporate. And or don't be afraid to let go of that thing if it wasn't what you expected. Um but if you come up with a bit of a budget, even if it's just a percentage, like I'm going to spend 8% a year on learning or 10% on coaching and learning, um, it gives you something to shoot for. And once you reach that goal, you can then be like, whoa. And the other thing I would say is do not forget to put aside 3 to 6 months or a year or 2 years, depending on your comfort level of money, because there will be lean times. There will be some change. There will, especially for online businesses, people, TikTok's going to go away.
Right.
All that income you make on TikTok might not be there next week. So I think funding that level of savings would be the thing I would recommend people do.
Love it.
before they overinvest in other things.
I wish somebody had taught me that my first time around, because I just thought everything I make goes right back into the business until we blow it up real big. And then I ran into so many cash flow problems, as you would imagine.
I did too. And especially if you're a solopreneur, do not forget that if something happens with your health, it can really affect you. In my first 7 years in business, I had an emergency surgery and I broke my arm and I had a car accident. And each one of those took me out for over a month.
Wow.
So know that stuff comes up.
Yeah, and they're called emergencies for a reason. You can't plan for when they're going to happen, but you can count on them happening eventually.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I guess the last thing I want to ask you around this is, are you currently investing? And if so, what do you like to invest in?
I do invest. It's been a little haphazard. It goes back and forth. It's super consistent, and then it's a little haphazard for a little while if things take a downturn, or I'm making a shift. So right now I've got a Roth 401. No, Roth IRA. Sorry. I'm not working for someone else anymore. I've got a little bit of crypto just because it sounded fun and I got a windfall and I'm like, might as well. I have an annuity that, I don't know, some financial planner talked me into. I'm not sure it was a good idea, but it's there. And I invest in art. I have art.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I'm glad that you invest in things that you like, aside from just, things for later on and for retirement, because so many people miss that piece when they start investing. If you invest in things that you like and are knowledgeable, you're going to do much better a lot of the time than just picking whatever somebody tells you or what seems hot or whatever, because you're not paying attention to that. You don't know it well. And if you don't like it, like I know people who think the only way to financial freedom is real estate. And then you ask them if they're going to, own a bunch of real estate, and they're like, I don't want to deal with tenants. I don't like, it sounds terrible to them, but then they do it anyway, and it's
right. Well, I happen to love houses. I love refinishing houses. I'm like the person that spends Sunday afternoons going to open houses, even though I'm not in the market for a house. I have no desire to own a house because that would complicate my life. And that I'm very clear on that. But just yesterday I went on a morning walk and I noticed 2 houses in my neighborhood for sale. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. Should I look into that? No. You can appreciate things without owning them. And you can make your own day-to-day environments very exquisite, whether it's in a smaller space or a big space with lots of open areas. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah,
but make the choice for you. Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, Miriam, before I let you go, for people who want to know more about what you do, what you're up to, and possibly work with you, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, I think the website, morethanorganized.net, it has all the gateways to everything else, all the social medias. I'm kind of everywhere except TikTok and Twitter /X, whatever the heck that's called. I'm everywhere else. So, yeah, check it out. There's some free offerings. The resource tab has lots of free offerings, and join me there. I offer quite a few things. So
Awesome. Thanks for that. And then the last thing I always ask is if you could give one piece of advice to all the entrepreneurs out there, or just some parting words, what is that?
figure out what you want and then act towards that goal, that desired outcome. It's not even a goal. It's a desired outcome. The goals are the tasks that get you to that outcome, just so you know.
Yeah, clarity is absolutely key. Miriam, it's been a blast having you on. I appreciate you spending some time with us today. I hope the audience is going to enjoy it as well. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun. Great conversation and questions.
Thanks very much. If you did enjoy listening to this, all you people out there, we would love it if you could leave us a 5-star review. If you haven't done that yet, it helps us get the word out to more entrepreneurs. And if you want to find out when we have new episodes coming up, you can subscribe as well. All right, we will see you next time, Miriam. Thank you again.
If you've listened this far, chances are you're an entrepreneur looking to become more financially literate and create financial freedom for yourself from your business.
The Pay Yourself First podcast
is definitely here to help with that. my goal is to continue to share what I've learned about using your business as the tool to create financial freedom. But let's face it, it would take me years to share with you everything you need to know via these episodes. Creating financial freedom is something that most people never even consider, let alone make a plan for or take action towards. It's something almost no one was taught anything about. Doing it as an entrepreneur is even more challenging, especially without support. So if you're ready to get clear on what financial freedom looks like for you, come up with an action plan, and get the support systems and accountability you need, I invite you to consider the Abundantly Infinite Entrepreneur. I created the program to help entrepreneurs just like you get a handle on their personal and business finances and start building confidently towards financial freedom. And it's how you can discover ways to take 10 years off your retirement, add an extra 5 or 6 figures to your portfolio, and finally get clear on what numbers you should be tracking in your business and why. Together, we'll gain clarity around your financial goals and what being financially free would actually look like for you. Then we'll put together a customized game plan to get you there and the accountability to see you through. And by the way, you're also going to get all the spreadsheets you need to run your numbers, lifetime access to the materials, including any updates, and entry into our members-only community. In addition to all the knowledge, coaching, community, and systems that you need to create financial freedom from your business, you'll also receive a free financial assessment, a retirement planning session, and guided meditation aimed at helping you embody the feeling of true financial freedom. So yeah, you can just listen to the free content on these podcasts to help you move towards becoming a financially free entrepreneur. And sure, you'll likely see some results, or you can make the decision to commit to learning, implementing, and embodying what you need to know to create the financially free life you dreamed of when you started your business journey. Click the link in the show notes to answer a quick questionnaire, and you'll be on your way to joining the Abundantly Infinite Entrepreneur.